Recording in progress.
The seasons, they've turned. The long light days are fading. The leaves are red and yellow, and many have already fallen to earth, disintegrating on our lawns and in piles at the curb. And some hidden part of us, knowing that winter will set in before we realize it, some part of us is telling us to hurry up. In the midst of all the things that make demands on our attention, all the news, the family, urgencies and emergencies, the projects, the worries, the fears, in the midst of all of this, we face the truth that just like other animals, we need to get ready to weather the coming cold season. Even if we don't need to frantically gather nuts like the squirrels do, we still feel psychological pressure to do something and do it now before it's too late. But Naomi Shihab Nye has advice for us. Walk around feeling like a leaf, she says. Know you could tumble any second. Then decide what to do with your time. Feeling like a leaf. I wonder how many of you are familiar with the story of Freddie the Leaf. Freddie the Leaf was written by Leo Buscaglia, and it begins in summer when Freddie the Leaf had grown large. Freddie was a maple leaf who had begun as a small sprout on a large branch near the top of a tall tree. That was in spring. But by summertime, Freddie's midsection was wide and strong, and his 5 extensions were firm and pointy. There were hundreds of other leaves on Freddie's tree, all the same, yet all different. Alfred was the leaf next to him, Ben was the leaf on his other side, and Claire was overhead. They had all grown up together, learning to dance in the spring breezes, basking in the summer sun, and washing off in the cooling rain. Freddie's best friend was Daniel, the biggest and wisest leaf on the branch. Daniel taught all the leaves that they were part of a tree that had strong roots hidden in the ground below, and that the tree was in a park. Daniel explained about the birds that came to sing in the branches, and he taught them about the sun and the moon and the stars and the seasons. Freddie loved being a leaf. He loved everything about it, the light, the sky, his friends, but especially he loved the warm summer sun and the soft, dreamy moonlight. That summer, the park drew many people who came and sat in the shade under Freddie's tree. Daniel told him that giving shade was part of his purpose. "What's a purpose?" Freddie asked. "It's a reason for being," Daniel answered. "To make things more pleasant for others is a reason for being. To make shade for the older people, provide a cool place to play for the children, to welcome the picnickers. These are all reasons for being." But summer soon passed. It vanished on an October night. Freddie had never felt so cold. All the leaves shivered, coated with a thin layer of white, which melted in the morning sun. Daniel explained that this was the first frost, the sign that fall had come and winter would soon follow. Within days, all the leaves began to turn colors. Then, one day, the gentle breezes that used to make the leaves dance began to tear at them, almost as though they were angry. Some of the leaves were pulled from their branches and swept to the ground, and all of the leaves were frightened. "What's happening?" they whispered. "What's happening?" Daniel explained, "This is what happens in fall," he told them. "It's time for the leaves to change their home. Some people call it to die." "Will we die?" asked Freddie. "Yes, everything dies," said Daniel matter-of-factly. "No matter how big or small, how weak or strong, we grow, we experience the sun and the moon, the wind and the rain. We learn to dance and to laugh. We find our purpose. And then, one day, we die. Well, Freddie was pretty sure he didn't like this, no matter how much he trusted Daniel. He was afraid, even as he saw other leaves letting go and dropping quietly from the tree. He said, "I will not die. How about you?" And Daniel answered, "Yes, Freddie, I will die in time." "When is it time?" asked Freddie. "No one knows for sure," said Daniel. A little while later, Freddie had another question. "Does the tree die too?" "It is strong," said Daniel, "but yes, it will die someday. But there is something even stronger than the tree. Life. Life lasts forever, and we are all a part of it." Freddie asked, "But what's been the reason for all this? Why are we here if we only have to fall and die?" And Daniel replied, "It's been about the sun and the moon, about the shade and the old people and the children. It's been about being together, learning to dance. It's been about community. It's been about love." That afternoon, in the golden light before dusk, Daniel let go. He fell softly, smiling at Freddie as he went. And then Freddie was alone in the gathering darkness, the only leaf left on his branch. At dawn, the first snow was falling. A wind came and lifted Freddie away from his branch. He floated down, seeing the whole tree for the first time in all its strength and beauty. He suddenly knew that he had been a part of its life, and that made him feel good. When Freddie landed and settled into the snowy ground, he didn't know that spring would follow winter and that the snow would melt into water. He didn't know that his self would eventually join with the water and serve to make the tree stronger. And he did not know that right there, asleep in the tree, were plans all ready for the unfolding of new leaves in the spring. In the mid-1980s, my mother gave the Freddie the Leaf book to my father. My father's name, of course, was Fred. I found the book at their house when I went to Michigan in the summer of 1992. That was the summer my father had to have emergency surgery for prostate cancer. He needed someone to help him afterwards. My mother couldn't do it. She was having some very significant mental health issues, so significant, in fact, that my parents were living separately from each other. We didn't know if my father had cancer or what kind of cancer. All we knew was that he needed to have the surgery immediately. So I flew from Seattle, where I lived at the time, to Michigan, responding to the urgency in my dad's voice on the phone and the urgency in my own heart. I was very afraid that I would lose him. Seeing him lying in a hospital bed made the fear worse. He looked so small and so vulnerable. My dad, so vulnerable. I was terrified, and he needed me to be the strong one. Little did I know that he'd be up and around in just a few days, enjoying immensely the privilege of ordering me to pick up every fallen twig and branch on his lawn before I mowed it. Not long after my father's cancer scare, one of the members of the congregation I served in Washington State was diagnosed with bone marrow cancer. John was a wonderful man, generous, brilliant, and very, very cranky. He was devoted to his family and his work and the church, but he never suffered fools gladly. For example, he was known to refer to those who were interested in spirituality as mouth-breathing, crystal-sucking airheads. That's his exact phrase. John also happened to be the head pathologist for all of Kitsap County, which meant he had he had analyzed the biopsy of his own sample and diagnosed his own condition. It was terminal. Can you imagine looking through a microscope and seeing the end of your own life? Just before he went into the hospital for a very difficult procedure, John asked if he could give a sermon for the church. On that Sunday, standing tall and gaunt in the pulpit, John pulled a crumpled brown paper bag out of his briefcase. He reached into it and took out a big, lifelike plastic tarantula spider, and he set it on the edge of the pulpit. He said, "I know some of you are surprised to see me up here. I'm somewhat surprised myself. I know what some of you think of me. I'm a jerk, maybe even an a-hole. I know," he said, "it's true. But I'm up here this morning because I have something important to say to you. I'm sorry. I love you, and I need your help." John went on to talk about his cancer and what it was like to suddenly know that his life expectancy was very short. As he spoke about what he felt he had accomplished in his life and what he still hoped he'd be able to do, he moved the tarantula to his wrist and then his arm and then to his shoulder. And all of a sudden, it was on his neck. So close, so intimate, this threat to his life that had been invisible until it was too late. At the end of the service, John thanked us and asked us to keep him in our prayers, meditations, crystal things, or whatever it was we did. Then he reached back into his crumpled paper bag and gave every single person there a plastic tarantula. A loving, playful reminder that we don't know when our time to die will come. What we do know is that our time on earth is limited, all of us. That knowledge is tucked away somewhere in the mind of every human being. It's just how we're made. As far as we know, we alone, out of all Earth's creatures, face all of life's choices with the understanding that someday we'll simply cease to be. Of course, we know this, but most of us don't think about it all that much. As a matter of fact, we're encouraged to not think about it at all. In Western culture, thinking about death, talking about death, it's considered morbid. It's seen as unhealthy in mind and spirit. And there's a seed of truth there, of course, because thinking overmuch about death can frighten us and strip us of our sense of purpose. We become like Freddie the Leaf, asking, "Why are we here at all if we only have to fall and die?" And so we don't think about it. Push it into the background. We lose ourselves in the noise and distractions of life, holiday plans, work problems, goals for our children's education, new grandbabies, family fights, and of course, the news, the awful news. We act like life is limitless until something reminds us that this is not so, and we are awakened. When I was helping my dad after surgery in those anxious days before we knew that his doctors had removed all the cancer, before we knew he would be all right, he and I lived in a state of heightened consciousness, remembering what was too important for us to forget: love, family, and the beauty of the earth. He realized he didn't want to lose my mom. He wanted to make sure she would get the treatment that she needed. I realized how precious they both were to me, and it shifted our relationship in very significant ways. We never know what will awaken us. It could be something as simple as a particular date on the calendar, the sound of bells, whether they are from a monastery or here in your fellowship, or the sight of a plastic tarantula. It could be something as frightening as a serious illness in someone close to us, or something as seemingly remote as news of war in a distant country. It could even be something as common to us all as the falling leaves. But no matter the source of it, awakening brings us choice. Like Freddie, we can tremble and hide until the wind pulls us from the safety of our branch, or we can dare to walk around feeling like a leaf, knowing we could tumble any second. What do I mean by that? Walking around feeling like a leaf means allowing ourselves to touch our limits without being afraid of them and feeling the sacredness of that action. It means we can let go of the security of our branch, our habits, our entrenched ideas, and let ourselves fall through a doorway into depth. Nothing is better at sharpening our ability to cut through the noise and distractions of life. That simple phrase, walk around feeling like a leaf, can remind us to tend our inner lives so that our outer actions become more congruent with the values we hold dear. This is what Naomi Shihab Nye urges us towards. Stop, she says, don't go to that party. Don't spend your precious moments on someone your life let go of long ago, probably for good reason. Don't stay on the surface of life. Take time to appreciate the beauty and complexity of your one wild and precious life. Consider who you are, why you're here. Take time to remember who you love and what you love, to remember your values, and to ask how you might live them more fully. Take time to remember what matters most to you, what matters most to your community, and what matters most to the great living earth that we and all life depend on. Walk around feeling like a leaf, she says, then decide how you'll use your time. This is a blessing, and it's before us, here and now. What we do with it is up to each of us. Shalom, blessed be, and amen.